A good Sunday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Nicholas Herboso. We have a new tropical storm. Tropical Depression 10 is recently strengthened into Tropical Storm Idalia. Now, this is because of hurricane hunter observations. Hurricane hunters have been investigating this system throughout the morning, and when they got in there, they discovered that we had the threshold of 40-mile-per-hour winds. Therefore, we now have a tropical storm. Tropical storm is currently located off the coast of Cozumel, about 80 miles east-southeast of Cozumel, Mexico. Center of circulation right around there, right around that little area of thunderstorms. Winds right now at 40 miles per hour. I want to give you a look for the Fox 10 viewing area. First look at what we're thinking for our impacts, what we know for Tropical Storm Idalia. So one thing that we know, this thing is going to be approaching the Florida coastline midweek. And I'm talking Wednesday morning, maybe late Tuesday. So starting Tuesday, dangerous rip currents at our Gulf Coast beaches will be the main threat. Very dangerous rip currents. The rip current risk will be upgraded to high Thursday evening, and then high once again on Wednesday. Now, we also know that small track shifts are also possible. As we can see, this is actually the edge of the forecast cone here, and there is possible that we could have some small shifts. And also remember the possibility that if the storm were to take the very far western side of the track, that would be closer to Panama City, then there might be some impacts in terms of winds and rain in, say, Okaloosa County. That's why we want people, especially in the eastern half of the Fox 10 viewing area in Mobile, Pensacola, to keep your eye out on this storm, to stay updated on the storm, stay updated regularly with us so you can know if you need to take action. But right now, just make sure you have your hurricane plan in place, your normal hurricane plan in place that you would typically have all throughout hurricane season, and make sure that you are closely watching the system. Now, exact details in terms of impacts cannot be determined just yet. We still have a little bit of time. So for now, the main thing that we know is we need to be watching this thing, even in our area, even in the Fox 10 viewing area, and we know that rip currents are going to be a major threat at the beaches next week. So diving into what the storm looks like now, here it is on satellite, and this is interesting because it actually has an exposed center. You have to look very closely, but there is a little swirl that you can see right kind of at the end of the pointer, and a little circle that you might be able to see where you can see the low-level clouds circulating there. There are no thunderstorms right around the center. However, the hurricane hunters did discover that this storm does have winds of 40 miles per hour. Therefore, it has been designated as Tropical Storm Idalia. Taking a look now at the forecast path for this storm. As we can see, it lingers around in the southern Gulf of Mexico for a little while before beginning to move north around Tuesday. Early Tuesday it moves north, then by the time late Tuesday, it's becoming a hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The latest forecast track has a landfall anywhere between Apalachicola and Tampa. However, as we know with tropical systems, the forecast track can always shift very slightly. Also, something to remember, the forecast track is for the center of the storm. And remember that storms take up space. The storm is not one center line. So don't just pay attention to the center line. Don't just pay attention to one side of the track. Instead, think of the storm, how big it is right now. A large area of clouds, a large area of thunderstorm, a larger area of impacts, and let's say it's on the far eastern side of the cone. That means a large area of the Florida Peninsula is dealing with impacts. If it's on the far western side of the cone, a large area of the Florida Panhandle dealing with impacts. So understand that this center line is not the law. And there might be some wiggle room within this forecast cone, and the forecast cone may shift from advisory to advisory. That's the typical thing we see with tropical systems, especially one that is kind of further out. We're still a few days out for this thing. So I want to give you another view of the track in terms of the spaghetti models. And you can kind of see it in the beginning of the runs there near Cozumel, kind of the squiggliness of the lines. This storm is currently moving very slowly, and it's kind of completing a loop right now. It actually moved south overnight last night, and then is now turned east, and now is going to eventually start turning north. But it's this loop that's causing it. It's in a weak steering flow. Therefore, there is just a little bit of model discrepancy from where the storm actually is in the beginning. So you see that little bit of spread in the beginning near Cozumel, but also you may notice how together all of the individual center line spaghetti plots are as they go up towards the Big Bend of Florida. They're staying pretty tightly packed, and this has been a consistent thing, which is good. That means that we're developing confidence in this forecast. I want to show you another set of spaghetti models. This is what we call the GFS ensemble plots. This is essentially different members of the GFS forecast model. So a few more different options for us to see that go into determining the GFS forecast model plot. So what we see here is a little bit more of a spread, which is typical for more models, but still a general consensus on some kind of impact in the Big Bend of Florida. Will this shift again? Of course it will. It might shift east, it might shift west. It's just going to be a wait and see game. We have time to wait and see as this thing lingers for the next day or so in the Yucatan Channel just off the coast of Cozumel there. I want to give you a look at some of the ingredients. Here's some of the stuff that we do really know about this system. We do know that it is moving into an area of very warm water in the Gulf of Mexico, and deep warm water. So these are buoy observations. Off the coast of Florida here, you see the 88s. Off the coast of our area, off the coast of Gulf Shores there in Alabama, we have 89. So a very warm water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. We've been dealing with a heat wave. We've had a ridge over our area. That's helped to warm up the Gulf of Mexico, especially the northern Gulf of Mexico, which is where this storm will likely be tracking. So keep that in mind. Also remember, also know that this system is actually moving into an area that will not have a ton of wind shear. In fact, relatively light wind shear. There will be a little bit, thanks to a trough that will be developing in the Gulf of Mexico, that will induce a little bit of shear on Idalia as it is moving north. However, it's not going to be a lot, so it has the potential to strengthen. Also, I want to break down something slightly different here. For the Fox 10 viewing area, for our area here in Mobile, for the next couple days, Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have a slightly elevated rain chance thanks to a frontal boundary that is draped just to the north of our area. This frontal boundary is associated with a trough. This upper level trough is one of the things that is helping to pull Idalia north. So there's a little bit of an interaction here between a couple of features. You see there the ball of tropical moisture indicated in red that's associated with the circulation of Idalia. That moisture is going to move north towards the Big Bend of Florida. One of the big threats for this storm, no matter the strength, is rainfall. Now you also see areas of red near the Mobile, New Orleans area. That's associated with the frontal boundary. That's not directly associated with the tropical system. However, once we get towards Wednesday, there is a little bit of a blurring of the lines. So this has to do with our rainfall forecast for the Mobile area, and then of course for the Big Bend and points north and east with the track of Idalia. So for the Mobile area with this track, it looks like we get rain either way. Maybe not directly associated with Idalia, but associated with our frontal system. So in the Mobile area, you see rainfall totals around 1 inch. But if you look off to your east, you see the bigger totals where the GFS has the center of Idalia moving through. We have 5 inches for a total in Tallahassee, 7.6 in Albany, Georgia, 4.5 inches in Panama City. Now this little center line will shift, and I'm talking about this multiple times where we have to understand that this is only based off of one forecast model run, and this will shift. The forecast models don't dictate what's going to happen. So we might see a shift in the higher rainfall totals from west to east, run to run, until we get even more confidence in the forecast. Understand that anybody that does get into the path, the direct path of the storm, will be dealing with rainfall totals around this amount. In fact, possibly higher, up to 12 inches possible. You can see based on the colorization there. Also discussions from the National Hurricane Center indicating that those kind of extreme rainfall amounts are possible. This storm is going to be pulling up a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, from the Caribbean, from the deep tropics. Now, with our surface boundary that is oriented over the southeastern United States, there is going to be a little interaction of dry air, but the more consolidated this system is, which most models are indicating this, the more consolidated the system is, the more it'll be able to fight off any dry air that is to the storm's west. Therefore, we are looking like we're going to have a lot of rain for some portion of the southeast here as Idalia comes ashore. I want to break down one forecast model specifically for you. This is the GFS. Then we'll go and break down the European model. This is 8 p.m. on Monday. This is 8 p.m. tomorrow, and notice how Idalia is pretty much in the same place that it is now. Pointing it out here, the center of the storm, and I'm going to have to reset this actually. It started to move on me. The center of the storm is actually located still near off the coast of Cozumel. So as the system is getting its act together, it's not moving too much in the next couple of days. Then as we advance this forward, by the time we get to around Tuesday, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., you can see that it is now emerging into the Gulf of Mexico and beginning to strengthen. By the time we get towards midday on Tuesday, it is in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. You can see the closed circulation there, the center of circulation located pretty much south of Panama City there, well south of Panama City, deep in the Gulf of Mexico. Taking this to 10 p.m. on Tuesday. One great thing is the timing has been really consistent with these models. So 10 p.m. on Tuesday, it looks like it is offshore off the western Gulf Coast of Florida, the Florida Peninsula there. And you can see the circles indicating the center of circulation. Those are your isobars, which is essentially lines of constant pressure. Anytime you see the circles kind of tighter, that just means that's where the low pressure is. That's where the center of circulation is. And you can also see it indicated in the stream lines, the wind lines that are circulating around the system. You can also see on this map the rainfall, and you see the rain shield. You may be asking, if you're in the Mobile area, what is all of this green up here? That is the green associated with the frontal system and not directly associated with Idalia. Remember, I said we're going to be getting rain either way early next week. Now, taking this to Wednesday morning, a landfall point most likely. This landfall, or this forecast model has landfall right around Apalachicola. And also the strength of this is a little bit stronger. It's a hurricane on this forecast model, as you can see. And notice the lines are a little bit tighter, so indicating a deeper, stronger system. The colors are a little bit brighter, indicating heavier rain, more likelihood for heavy rain associated with the system as the system is stronger. Also, I want you to notice the general shape of this here. Notice that the western side of the system is pretty much dry. For the Fox 10 area, for the Mobile area, if this were to verify, if this were to come true and actually happen, which we have to, so wait and see to see if it does, this would mean a drier day for us for parts of the day on Wednesday. And as you can see, the western side of the storm typically is the drier side. We've had systems that have made landfall in this area in the past, and thinking back to previous storms. And whenever systems, especially stronger ones like hurricanes, make landfall in an area like the Big Bend or the Forgotten Coast, we end up on a dry side, and it can sometimes be a quite dry day for the Mobile area, the Pensacola area. Then the closer you get towards Destin and then Panama City, the more you get into the actual rain shield of the system. This is one forecast model, 9 a.m. I'm going to get it through a little bit later in the day. This is 4 p.m. on Wednesday. You can see possibility of some banding for our area, maybe some light rain showers, maybe some breezy conditions, but overall not too many impacts in the Fox 10 area based on this particular run of this forecast model. Remember, this is only one run though. And as we can see, this thing moving up to southern Georgia now, and then it actually begins to kind of take a turn, weakens over South Carolina there, and starts to turn almost out to sea here by the time we get towards Thursday. I'm going to take this full again, and we're going to go to the European forecast model now. And as you can see, at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, a similar position in the Gulf of Mexico, the center of circulation, located right here. And you notice the lines are a little bit more spread out, indicating a little bit of a weaker system. But by say weaker, a little bit of a less deep system than it could be later on in the forecast. And as we advance this to late on Tuesday, you see our frontal system over the Mobile area. That's the rain associated with the frontal system. You see that little band of green there. Then we have the circulation of Idalia, a strengthening circulation over the warm waters and low shear. Notice the lines get tighter as we get early Wednesday. Look at how similar this position is to the GFS position. That's a great thing. We have a little bit of consistency here. So 8 a.m. on Wednesday, a landfall somewhere near the Forgotten Coast, Big Bend area, according to this one run of the European forecast model. What happens after this? Well, as we get towards Wednesday afternoon, a similar story. It moves into southern Georgia. Major impacts likely for the Big Bend area and for southern Georgia. Heavy rain, strong wind, likely some storm surge for the western coast of Florida in terms of like on the peninsula, kind of your Tampa points north, dealing with some form of onshore flow in this particular scenario. Then this forecast model takes it a little bit farther to the east. A little bit farther to the east, you see southern South Carolina almost offshore in the Atlantic. That's been a trend with the European forecast model compared to the GFS. As you can see, by Friday, it actually emerges out into the Atlantic. So those were the two forecast models, the two biggest forecast models that we normally look at for tropics, and it's the most reliable global models. To kind of give you a summary of a broader picture, I have this labeled as risk areas. Anywhere you see in red are those areas, at least according to the current forecasts, that impacts are most likely. Impacts being strong wind, flooding rain. Think about storm surge on the onshore flow areas. That's your Florida western coast there. And then, of course, the possibility of tornadoes and other typical stuff that is associated with tropical cyclones. Anywhere you see in yellow, if you're in that area, you still need to watch the forecast very, very closely. Because shifts are always possible. You know, tracks will often windshield wiper back and forth, especially this far out. But just make sure you're keeping an eye on the system impacts possible, but that's not the main zone of impacts, at least according to the current forecast. One review once again for the Mobile, Pensacola area. Our impacts based on those forecast models generally looking minimal. However, there is the possibility for shifts in track, so we have to keep watching, especially if you're in the eastern half of our area, such as Pensacola and our Florida Panhandle counties. That's Santa Rosa, Escambia, Okaloosa counties. The main story for the Mobile area, and really for the entire Gulf Coast, anytime there is a tropical system in the Gulf, it is dangerous rip currents. Rip current risk increases by the time we get towards Tuesday and Wednesday. We're at a high risk of rip currents, dangerous surf at the Gulf Coast beaches. Also, something to know that exact details are somewhat uncertain, and those details may change. Make sure you are staying tuned to the forecast. All right, to wrap this thing up here, here's a look at the current situation with Tropical Storm Idalia. It has a 40-mile-per-hour maximum sustained winds with gusts to 45 miles per hour. The pressure is steadily dropping, now at 996 millibars. That's down from the lower 1,000 millibars that it was at in the previous advisory. Notice the slow motion. East at 2 miles per hour. It's going to linger in the Yucatan Channel in the northwestern Caribbean for a little while longer before it emerges into the Gulf of Mexico on Tuesday. All right, well, that's the kind of summary, that's the breakdown of what we have going on here. I have Facebook pulled up here. If you do have any questions for us here, I will stay on for just a little bit longer. Again, the main story for the Mobile area, we're just going to keep watching it, even though based on current tracks, the current track and current modeling is indicating that our impacts would be relatively minimal. However, we do get a good thing with that frontal boundary. So we, in the Mobile area, do get a little bit of rain, not directly associated with Idalia, but Monday and Tuesday we do get a little bit of rain. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for joining us here on our live streaming platforms. This is our tropical update. We have newly designated Tropical Storm Idalia that has formed in the northwestern Caribbean. It's going to be making its way into the southern Gulf of Mexico in the coming days. We will be doing our best to keep you updated. Make sure you're following us on social media, our entire team of meteorologists here. And we're working our hardest to keep you updated. Stay tuned. Make sure you also download that Fox 10 weather app, a great way to stay updated as well. And we'll be keeping you updated throughout the evening and for the next few days.